Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I'm first time in Kiel, and yesterday was beautiful weather. But beautiful today because it's very alike as in Lithuania. And weather no matter. As it was told, everything matters on political will, especially for politicians. If you have political will and you know what to do, and for that you need economists and scientists, which will be awarded also, political leader needs to make a decision. And for that, knowledge and strategic intuition needed to be in hand. And only having these kind of tools, we can achieve a lot, including in the European Union. Somebody says that Europe has only 2 or 3 common policies. And if we need to do something together, we need to change our treaties. No, we don't need to change any treaties. It's only about political will, even having the mentioning in the treaties, to have an agreement and to go ahead with the policies. And then we're talking about understanding and shaping. Yes, that's exactly what politicians are supposed to do. Not only to know what to do, but how to do and implement this. A political cycle in democratic societies is about 4 or 5 years. Sometimes our politicians are living only by the cycle, and the decisions are adapted to the cycle. And this is our weakness. Why it is so sometimes difficult to fight with autocracies, because they do not have cycles, and they are electing themselves for life. And this I'm especially now talking about our neighborhood, Russia, which became or revived its imperialistic ambitions, not even imperialistic of 20th century, but 18th century of Piotr I and Ekaterina II. So I can joke that we can, in Baltic states, especially Lithuania and Poland, propose to revive the 15th century Lithuanian kingdom, which was even from Baltic Sea to Black Sea, and even Smolensk was in our territory. But if we will go so far in the reshaping our borders, we will never end the wars. And the elephant in the room today, of course, is the war. And not only conventional war, which Putin started, but we are already dragged in hybrid, unconventional wars on the food war, which is increasingly, food is used as a tool of war. We are falling also with the climate, because the war is also impacting the climate in our region. We also falling into migration crisis again, because after the hunger, a lot of migrants will flow again to Europe next year or in the nearest future. So in reality, we are trying to avoid participating in the war, but Putin is dragging us into world war fed with unconventional tools of involvement. And from the very beginning of the war, I was saying that we need to stop him on the territory of Ukraine with all force possible, because Putin will understand only defeat on the battleground, nowhere else. He can survive any sanctions, any, as long as it takes. Russians can survive on the cabbage and vodka for a long time. They don't need anything else. No, I'm a little bit charging and a little bit making it, how to say, grotesque, but it is true. We are spoiled in the West. We used to have better life, and we don't want to lose it. Why we're so unwilling to be involved faster. But the longer war will go, and today I just was reading Stoltenberg said that we need to be prepared for long war, maybe a few years. I can imagine what price we will pay. The longer the war will be, the more we will try to delay our direct involvement, the more costly it will be to everybody, especially to us in the West. because this imperialism will not stop in Ukraine, it will go ahead. The second wave will be Baltic states, Poland, and other Eastern European countries. And the more we will be watching from outside, talking about our global interests, all interest will become oriented towards the battle, the war against global imperialism. He is uniting behind himself China, India, and other countries. Africa almost is on the side of Russia. Europe is gone from Africa. So geopolitically, we are failing today because we still try to avoid involvement. And we remember the lessons of the Second World War. And of course, not for you to remind these lessons. It's more for us, because you know your lessons. But it's more for us, other Europeans, that if you are trying to avoid the war will come anyway, plus with a lot of shame and humiliation. If you want to avoid at least humiliation, you need not to be afraid of war. So in reality today, in this situation, we need Churchills in Europe, but not Chamberlains. But we do not have either. The lack of leadership, political leadership in Europe is so visible that it's difficult even to watch. I'm very happy that new government of Germany, under the objective pressure, is changing the foreign policies and taking more responsibility in defending itself and more actively involved into the providing security to Europe. It's very good tendencies because, of course, 80 years after the war is very difficult and painful, but Europe needs to be strong, not only because it is strong, but to have self-confidence to be strong, especially Germany. And in 2016, during my official visit, I talked with Merkel eye to eye. And after the President Haug, I met with her eye to eye, without Social Democrats at that time near the table. And I asked her to come and for Germany to lead the battle group in Lithuania and to take responsibility for their European security and not to be afraid of it and to be self-confident. And they, at that time, this, Defense Minister Ursula, they decided, and we did it. But still, it was small steps ahead. And for Germany especially, we Europeans, we're looking on Germany to take leadership. And Germany is still shining, is still afraid to be a leader. So what I'm saying, we have no time. Putin will not only drag us into very difficult situation, he will impose on us. We will be left without choice, or we're taking responsibility on our shoulders, responsibility to be independent from him, especially from his energy supplies, or he will make us dependent in different ways. Food, energy, even maybe conventionally, cyber and other elements. I want to give one example from my presidency, how political will matters. And that even one leader can do a lot if he is ready to risk. After I came to office in 2009, I met in 2010 with Putin. He was prime minister at that time. And Lithuania was paying about 40% more for gas than Germany was paying, mainly because we were too uncollaborative, too independent, and not giving in. And it was practical and possible to buy our politicians, by energy monies. And it cost us, yes. We paid 40% more than Germany. And then I met with him, I asked why. And the request was very clear. It was the list of 13 requests what I need to do. Just to kneel in front of him and to fulfill all 3 demands. I said no. And all friendship disappeared. And I never met with him anymore, and thanks God, there was no need. But what I did, I immediately asked government, it was Kubilius at that time, to make Lithuania independent from energy resources at all. And in 2015, Lithuania built LNG terminal, 2015. This meant for us that we are absolutely not dependent today even, and from 2015 on Russian gas. The same after the invasion we did with electricity and oil. We are not buying today electricity and oil from Russia. Lithuania, small country, weak economically in comparativeness with other European nations. The will, strategic understanding where your interests are, not based on the election cycle, but based on security, freedom, and interests of your country. That's the obligation of politicians. And here in Laudatio was mentioning about economic crisis, how much we squeezed our society during the crisis. But what I want to say, it was a necessity, but politicians were supposed not only persuade, but lead as example. You cannot, for example, cut salary or pension, saying that it is necessary and you receiving your old salary. I myself, for 3 years, 50% of my presidential salary was returning to Treasury. 3 years during the crisis. So only with personal example, you can go down to population and say, look, I'm with you. It is necessary to cut, I'm cutting also. So in such case, during such kind of cuts, we had no strikes at all because people believed that it is necessary. And in 3 years, we were growing immediately back. The first in Europe after such a huge crisis, which was in 2008 and 12. So what I'm saying, that then we're talking about local governments, about land or federal governments, then state government in separate countries, then European governments, no matter what level you are as politicians. The responsibility and leadership is the same. You need to risk, you need to take on your shoulders personal responsibility and go in front, how to say, you need to take the fire on yourself. Why? It was sometimes described that I'm eager to go to conflict, because in the conflict, then you're taking the conflict on yourself, you find the solution. If you're quiet, if you're just reacting, responding, and waiting, you will never solve anything. So, and I want to defend a little bit Merkel. I know that it is very fashionable now to attack her and to criticize. It's normal. You know, there is a joke about 3 letters for political readers. Then you come to office, you need to open first letter. In this letter is usually written that you have 6 months to criticize previous predecessor. After 6 months, you need to open another letter. In the second letter, it is written, so it is time to stop and you need to start to work. After 6 months, that means after a year, you need to open third letter. And in this third letter is written that if you not yet started to work, get out. So I think that the time of criticism for Merkel already gone, and new government needs to start to work. But small example, just because I was sitting around the table with her for 10 years in the European Council. After the occupation of Crimea, if not Merkel, will be no sanctions at all against Russia, at all. That's my experience. And I have a lot of examples. I don't want to go deep. I just want to say, during her term, there was no war. That's it. Okay, thank you.